It is always a privilege to stand before you at the start of something transformational. And you know what transformation is? You've heard that word used so many times. But I like to think of transformation as the change that a caterpillar goes through to become a butterfly. That is what transformation is. It is to change from being a caterpillar to being a butterfly. It's the same entity, but at the end of that process of transformation, a totally different being emerges. One that has greater capabilities. One that can now fly and potentially soar to new heights. And though everything is beautiful under God's creation, I could venture to say that the butterfly is more beautiful than the caterpillar. And so that is transformation. And so today, we are going to transform a yard that was destroyed by arson. We are going to transform lives that were destroyed in that fire, being deprived of somewhere to live, deprived of their furniture and their equipment and their clothing. We're going to transform the lives of children who were affected by this fire, where they had no place to study. We're going to be transforming a community that by virtue of this act of violence and the destruction of the residents, the community would have been depressed. The value of the community would have been depressed. We're going to transform that. So today is a transformational day. So we are at 4 East Avenue in the heart of central Kingston. We are 13 persons, including elderly residents and school children, lost everything in 2021 to a devastating fire. This would have been brought to the attention of the government by the Member of Parliament. We would have come, done our investigations, and made the necessary provisions to start construction. It is obviously a disappointment that it has taken so long, but it is happening. It is happening. And I am seeing this smile on the beneficiary's face, representing the family. You are obviously a woman of great patience. And that is a part of the government that we need to transform. The bureaucracy of government. The speed at which we get things done. Presently, we are laser focused on making sure that we have a high level of compliance with the rules. But that level of focus and compliance, though important, and though it must never be compromised, needs to also take into account that for 4 years, elderly persons, school children, and others were deprived of their homes and the benefits. So we are not saying that the public bureaucracy must not comply. I want to be clear. The public bureaucracy must comply with all the rules, from design, public investment, procurement, and contracting. We must comply with it. But you know what? We need to do 2 things. We need to look at all the rules that are in place and see which one makes sense. Because not every one of the rules that are there makes sense or actually serves a purpose. So we have to do what is called a transformation of the processes. In other words, they call that the business process re-engineering. We have to re-engineer the steps that are required for us to get to this point where we can break ground. Because some of the steps don't make sense. And then we have to increase efficiency. We know the steps that have to be done, but they don't have to take so long. We have to work faster because there is a 13-year-old child who is now going to be sitting CXC when at the time of the fire, they were just about going into grade 8 or 9. And without the house, without the comfort, their life chances are affected. So if it means that I do the paperwork a little faster, if I review the document a little faster, then that child can have a better chance of doing well at their CSEC. In other words, not only must the process perfect compliance, but the process must perfect compassion. It must, at the same time, it is fulfilling the duty of the letter. It must also fulfill the requirement of being service-oriented. And that is indeed the challenge that falls to my government, and a commitment that we have made. As we have said, we will transform the public bureaucracy to make it more functional, to make it more efficient, and to make it more responsive. So today is also transformational in the sense that the new social housing program will be fulfilling one of its modalities that we don't really use too often, and that is the construction and the redevelopment of what we ordinarily call in Jamaica big yard or tenement yard. One property where several households reside. A more elegant way to put it would be the multi-family housing solution. So we are now going to be building, I believe, 7 units here to cater to 7 distinct households, which we call a multi-family development. We have a few of those that we are scoping. We have another one coming for this constituency where we will be building 21 units.
Yes, sir.
So this constituency is benefiting significantly from the new social housing program. And there is a reason why that is the case. Central Kingston is one of the areas which you could consider to be the early residential areas in Jamaica. And these areas were never informally settled. They were designed and planned. If you notice, you have proper roads, sidewalk, you have proper water mains, though they may be old and breaking now. Some areas are connected to sewer. You have proper electrification. So these are areas that are well established for residences. So they don't pose the challenge that we have to deal with. For example, where I went in a lovely district called Maho Hill in northern Clarendon, or in Shady Grove, or some other areas where the infrastructure is non-existent and the terrain, only a sure-footed goat could manage to walk up those areas. And we have built in some really very difficult terrain because it is the only place that the land is available. Here, the contractors will smile. They won't complain because they don't have to pay extra labor to carry bags of cement on their back up hills, slipping and sliding when the walkway gets wet. I have walked on a few of them. Thank God I haven't slid on any. But we have built in some really very challenging environment. Right here is flat. It's near to the hardware, near to the quarry, near to the cement company. Everything is close by. And that is why one of the houses that we opened today, believe it or not, a 3-bedroom house, took 3 weeks to be constructed. 3 weeks. The contractor is here, Britalix, who did an amazing job in completing the unit in 3 weeks. So, we all sometimes hear all kind of criticisms of local contractors. We have good local contractors who can do things efficiently. 3 weeks. But I also opened a house where I had to change contract, and it took a year to complete. And the question would have been asked, why? If you could build it in 3 weeks, why would one of the houses take a year? You would have seen in the newspaper about housing taking a little while under this program to be built. But one of the considerations that contractors have to deal with is that when they come into some communities and they tally up their costs, there is an additional cost that they have to pay called security. Now, who they have to pay the security to, is the person who created the insecurity in the first place. And then sometimes they come to work, they want to build, and they can't do anything because the laborers tell them, boss, me can't come here so because gunshot in my community and I can't come. And so the project stall. They carry material, they take a couple bags of cement and mix, and by the time they turn around, the material gone. They drop the steel, and they say, well, the steel heavy, them man, they lazy, them not going to take what the steel. They come back the next night, they see a long trail on the street, them just draw the steel, gone with it. These are things that affect projects like this. We don't talk about it, the newspapers don't write about it, and they give an impression as if it is all inefficiency on the part of government and contractors. But these are issues that face communities like these, which increase the cost of the construction and the time it takes to construct. And we have to bring this to the public attention. And that is why I'm so happy that in this community we can report that those persons who would be involved in that kind of activity, that many of them are no longer around. Those persons who would have burnt down the house, those persons who would have deprived persons from getting their benefits, those persons who would have been constantly disrupting the peace, those persons who would have been extorting the works in the area, those persons who would have been stealing from the sites, those persons who would have been making your life a miserable hell. We don't miss them. We don't miss them. They are no longer with us. They are no longer around. But those who are here, I would say to you, don't try to follow the bad example that we have had to address. Right now, we are pointing the community in a direction of peace. And I can tell you, everybody prospers when there is peace. Let me say that. Everybody prospers when there is peace. Even the former bad man, he too will prosper when there is peace. Even the former gun-toting criminal, once he puts down his gun, he too can prosper once there is peace. Peace is beneficial for everyone. We are only able to do this, and we are able to predict that we will finish this in 6 months because there is peace in this community. I urge the community members, everyone, to be wardens of the peace. You protect the peace. Don't let this peace that we have slip out of your hands again. The police are committed, they are working. They can only do half of it. The other half is up to you. So with these words of encouragement and reality, it gives me great pleasure to formally initiate the process of breaking ground and signing the $58.86 million contract to build these units. The architectural designs are lovely. It is going to raise the standard of this area, and I'm sure that other people who have lands around here will now start to look at their property and say, you know what? This is a place where I can start to reinvest. And that's what we want. We want people who own property in this area to say, let me try and do a little fixing up. Because once there is peace, people will want to come and pay rent and live here and have their businesses here. This is how you start to generate economic activity once there is peace. So, I invite you therefore to join me as we break ground and sign the contract. God bless you and thank you.